Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. When is Austin Reaves good and when is Austin Reaves not? JJ Redick explains. Plus, is he ready to start playing bigger lineups? We'll explain it all next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your very, very first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always going to be free and never, ever behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where how many subscribers, Andy, are hanging out?
About 27,000.
27,000 all hanging out and getting ready to for a D-Lo return tonight at the Crypt, but also breaking down what has gone well and what has not for the team over the last week or so. Some interesting comments from JJ Redick at practice in El Segundo on Thursday, which we will get to here in a second. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win that first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we have spoken a lot, Andy, about the performance of the big three and what the Lakers need to get from Anthony Davis and LeBron James and Austin Reaves. And of those three guys, I think it's fair to say, particularly since D'Lo was first moved out of the starting lineup and then traded away, nobody has had a role change that has been more significant than Austin Reaves. He's being asked to do a lot of new stuff in a lot of different ways. And at times the results have been really good, and at times the results have not. JJ Redick really got into a lot of that detail Thursday afternoon in El Segundo. You were there.
Yeah, and it was interesting. There was a lot of talk about roles, Rui, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, the video that I shot of Rui from practice didn't turn out. I don't know why, but Rui talked about the idea of leaning into his role, leaning into the asks, and really embracing them. He said it's one of the reasons why he, in his opinion, has adjusted well to being in LA and playing for the Lakers, which is not always a spotlight that players do well with or that they find comfortable. And Rui's just said, I'm happy here and I want to do whatever they ask me to do. And, you can debate the consistency with which Rui completes the asks and I guess the effectiveness, but by all accounts, he has been trying to do what has been asked of him and certainly hasn't resisted. And then there was also the question of Austin Reaves, who I think there's no doubt likes the idea of having more on his plate. The question is, and this is what JJ was asked about, like how well he has adjusted to the extra asks and what constitutes a good version versus a bad version.
I don't know if you did, but I know someone asked me a similar question when this whole thing first started. It might have been Dan, just about the turnovers and kind of living with that, but also finding the balance. You have to give him his daring. He has a daring mentality. You have to give a little bit on that and allow him to live in that space. I think when he's played the right way, which is taking responsibility for what he is for this team, which is a primary creator, and taking the right shot, made the right passes. I'll be honest with you, he's played at an all-star level. Like, he's been that good. You don't have stretches of 10, 12 games in the NBA season averaging 22, 8, and 6 on high efficiency without playing the right way. And he's been that good for us. It's when the game kind of goes sideways, and this is what we talked about yesterday, the game going sideways. It's like you can't get out of character. You can't then decide, I'm going to take bad shots because I haven't had a shot in a while. I'm going to make that pass. Our team needs you to play the right way every time, and if he's done that, he's been elite.
It's funny when Redick talked about the daring nature of Austin. It gets to something you and I have talked about a lot, which is, Austin has this image of like, oh, the all shucks, golly, happy to be here, hillbilly Kobe. Like, Austin's kind of a reckless player. Like, he is often he
is among the most arrogant basketball players in terms of style. And I mean this in a good way. Like, he has a confidence and a willingness to do things that a lot of players don't have, that I think is essential. It leads to mistakes sometimes, but I think it is essential sort of to his like core being as a player, of like this sort of belief that I can do things on the court. And I'm probably, because he's been told like, all right, whatever, dude, dismissed so many times, like, I'm going to go take this thing from you, and plays with a chip on his shoulder.
There's that, but also too, I don't think it's just an arrogance to the way, or at least that's not the way I would describe it. I would describe it more as recklessness along the lines of a Manu Ginobili, who was Pop has talked a lot about, and these are similar sentiments to what JJ was talking about with Austin. I want to make it clear. Austin Reaves is not as good a player as Manu Ginobili, just before anybody misinterprets this. But there are stylistic similarities between the two. They both have kind of a chaotic, herky-jerky nature. They both have been accused of grifting for fouls at times, but they also take a lot of chances. And Pop had said, it took him a while to just accept that this is Manu, and he is occasionally going to give me a heart attack, but the good is going to outweigh the bad way more, and I want to be there for the good, so I'm going to have to accept some of the bad. With Austin, there are times where that recklessness can lead to really great things. There are also times where it gets Austin into trouble. And when I've talked before about the idea of too much being on Austin's plate, I'm specifically talking about those moments where sometimes he dribbles himself into trouble and tries to get himself out in ways that I don't think he is consistently capable of doing. That being said, though, JJ is right that when Austin plays at the top of his game, he can be a pretty effective player, particularly in fourth quarters. He's often really been a positive part of this team.
What I thought was really interesting about that clip is like we have talked like a ton, like with Christie. Like, you got to let it bake for a second, because Christie he's a third-year player, yes, but he's one who has not played a whole lot. And, we don't need to rehash all the arguments and all that kind of stuff. But you got to give it a minute. He is very inexperienced despite being a third-year player. Reaves is in his fourth, I think.
His first season was Russ's first season, I believe. He's
played a lot, but he's played a ton. Like, he's been a starter. He's been, a high-profile reserve. He's been all this other stuff. But he is new at this job. And so when you to some degree have to let
this is Austin, just clarification, Austin's fourth
year. I thought I counted that right. Yep. But the counting is not my strength. But he is new at this. And this in this case is a really big shift. It is, like JJ said, it's not just a matter of, picking your spots. So this is like, you have to be, it's like being the quarterback. Like, you have to be responsible for the entire thing. And Redick is correct. Like, it is a different mindset to be like, wait a minute, I have to dial it back because the bigger picture says I need to do Y instead of X. And so the Lakers are kind of, he's getting on the job training. And the Lakers, as you like to point out, Andy, traded the safety net. So they have put themselves in a position. And I support the DFS trade. Finney Smith, by the way, still listed as doubtful for tonight's game against Brooklyn.
That cheer you heard was Rui Hachimura.
Right.
Very excited for another day without DFS.
He welcomed earlier in the week the birth of a son, and so is still away from the team a little bit.
So did Rui. The baby gift Rui sent was like 50 grand.
Rui just kept poking the lady in the stomach, trying to get that baby to come out. But he's doing it without a net. There is no backup plan. And so, it is another one of these sort of high risk spaces that the Lakers have put themselves in, similar, Andy, to what they're doing in the front court. Another place that Redick spoke about, and it should be noted, teased some potential lineup changes. We'll get to all of that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you get a 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is right here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for a year from the first match, and you must keep funds in an IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost for details. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
So we'll get to this lineup thing in a second. Interesting piece of news. As LA still deals with the ongoing crisis because of the fires. We already knew about JJ Redick and the situation with his house completely lost. We learned LeBron James has been had to evacuate. He and his family in Brentwood. Anthony Davis, I believe, lives in the same neighborhood, also had to evacuate. And so LeBron talked about it, like being in a hotel and just everything has been off. It is not something that I think you and I are going to really approach as like trying to figure out and get inside guys' heads and see what the play is going to be, the play, the quality, there's the quality, whatever. But this is a back burner thing. And LeBron talked about it. Like, it is extra stress. It throws everything off. And one thing to remember is athletes are notorious creatures of habit. And when those routines are broken, they do not like it. And so nobody's asking for extra sympathy for LeBron and AD compared to so many people in LA, but it is one of these things. Like, you remember, like, this stuff really does affect people. And LeBron, it was interesting to hear LeBron talk about it. It's worth, if you can't, go find the clips.
Yeah, I was briefly laughing because when you brought up the idea of athletes being creatures of habit, it brought to mind during Rony Turioff's first season with the Lakers. I remember I was in a different part of Staples pregame, and you tracked me down, and you were like, Rony needs to talk to you. Like, it's really important before the game. I'm like, what? Okay. I went over there, and it turned out, like, because like 3 or 4 games in a row, I talked with Rony pregame, and he had really good games. He had decided that I was a part of his pregame ritual, and he needed to talk to me before every game, I guess, until Rony had a bad game. We covered the Dodgers for a few years for the LA Times. Clayton Kershaw, seriously OCD about.
Do not get in the way of Clayton Kershaw's game day routine.
Nomar would take 30 minutes each at bat because after every pitch, he had to readjust the batting glove, step out of the batting box, step back in, out. It was insane. And not to obviously make an apples to apples comparison to what LeBron and AD and JJ and all these other guys are dealing with right now. It's obviously really awful stuff, even if in the case of LeBron and AD, their homes, to the best of their knowledge, our knowledge, fine. Yeah. They're very lucky, fortunate that way. But it does throw them off in a profession that they all get very into routine.
And it's just stressful. I mean, your family's out of the house. You have to make sure, like, what do they have, what they need? And his mom has been with him. It's just like, it's just stuff. And, again, they're not going to, and we're not going to ascribe the results to what's been going on in the background for them. But it is something to be aware of, and just a reminder, like, this is not a one-day thing, a 2-week thing. It's like a years long kind of deal. So anyway, JJ Redick played Jackson Hayes with Anthony Davis a little bit in the Miami game, and
with LeBron on top of it.
Yeah, they got really big. And then I think, who was at the 2 at that point? I think it might have been Connect. I think it was Connect and Gabe. And so, like, Connect, who's not little, like, there's a lot of length out there on the floor. And that apparently, Andy, JJ talked about on Thursday, is going to be, is it overstating it to call it a new trend, or just a possible thing? What's more accurate here?
Well, JJ was, we'll play a clip of him in a second talking about this, but he was asked about the 2 big lineup, which also coincided with questions about the Lakers waiving Quincy Oliveri and giving a different 2-way deal to Trey Jamison. Big man, like 6'10", 6'11", 260. He's like a legitimately big dude.
A large fellow.
Yeah, and it led to conversations about just what they could be potentially looking for in the spot minutes that Jemison may play, but also the idea of trying to get larger on the court in general.
I think, first of all, a big body and plays extremely hard. With Christian and what we've asked of him, some because of Jackson's injury, but we have to sort of manage his days. And Trey gives us another body, another physical player. We kind of went away from those 2 big lineups. It's something we did last night. It's something we're going to try to get back to for small stretches of games. It doesn't mean we won't play small ever, but that's something I think where we can get some practice time, we can really work on those small ball looks. So for Trey, I think he's going to have an opportunity at times to be out there with AD. He's going to have an opportunity at times to play solo big, depending on who's available. Obviously, Jackson's our backup center. Not saying he's going to play over Jackson, but getting him in the program was important for us. And we obviously did intel on him. He's high character, high energy, smart player too, high basketball IQ. Super humble. Like, we're excited to have him.
And then JJ was asked just what led to going a little bit more with the 2 big lineups, because JJ had said early in the season that he had tried them and didn't like them.
The defense trending in the wrong direction. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If it is broke, let's try to fix it. Type thing. Just more size, more rebounding, more. Again, teams are trying to get 80 away from the basket. Well, maybe we can mix that up a little bit and have some more size out there for stretches of the game.
He also, too, intimated that, and I actually spoke with somebody after practice from the team, and they said as much as well, that Koloko not playing of late is related in part to the 50-game limit that you have with a guy on a 2-way player to have them active for any game, even if they don't play, just being
right. That's when Redick was talking about Koloko's situation, that's the situation he was talking about.
It's funny, it doesn't feel like it, but he's already played in 21 games, and there's still 40-something left, and until the Lakers have a 2-way roster spot that they could offer Koloko, because once he plays his 50, you either have to give him a veteran's minimum or he becomes a free agent. I don't think they want to lose Koloko, and I don't blame them. They have to be conscious of how often they can play him, but they also may need some of that size. So they bring in Jemison, and you have a little bit more optionality if you need it. Traore also is still on the roster, not a true center, but big guy at least.
Right, a body, a project in the front court that I think they just really like. They had to choose. They're essentially choosing between Traore and Olivari, and clearly decided that the upside in the long term was more with Traore. And so I think this is interesting. What strikes me here is I mean, like a lot of people, I wouldn't mind him playing two big line. I don't object to them having another center on the team. I think the idea of pairing AD sometimes with another center is not a bad idea. The larger question becomes, what do you pay to get that center? Based on how much you think that guy's actually going to play, a Jonas Valanciunas, some of these other people that are out there and available. Nick Richards going to Phoenix, that takes one of the names off the board Andy really liked.
That was my big project. I was trying to speak into existence. And for what it's worth, Eric Pincus from Bleacher Report, very dialed-in reporter, tweeted out after that deal went down. For those asking me why the Lakers didn't send 2 picks for Richards, Charlotte already had a bunch in 2025, and all the Lakers have to trade is theirs and one they got from the Clippers in 2025. Not all that appealing for the Hornets.
So I mean, you got to have the stuff. I mean, that was, as we said, like when you make a trade, they gave up essentially their usable second rounders in the deal with the Clipper for Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm saying so. It says a lot of things at once. It says, like, okay, we still haven't heard a word about Christian Wood, and no updates here. We're getting a lot of Vando updates and like radio silence on Christian Wood. So I think it's fair to say they don't expect him back anytime soon, and they can't use Koloko in the way they want. But even if they did, like, there are limits to him. There are limits to Jackson Hayes. They're throwing stuff at the wall and hoping a little bit of it sticks when they need it to. So in your mind, Andy, I'll ask you in the next segment, when you hear Redick talk like that and, express at least some openness to, like, okay, if we can find the right combinations, I don't mind, I'm up for, these larger lineups. Does that change the calculus for you at all on how much you would then spend in the trade market to go get another center that would be more playable? Quite frankly, no disrespect to any of these guys, but there's a reason they are where they are in the league. That would be more playable, a reliable boost to your rotation over 25 minutes or something like that a game. So that's the question. Next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Skims. I'm somebody who's really picky about underwear. I only wear boxer briefs, period. They have to have a certain feel, certain tightness, certain looseness. It's like Goldilocks. I want them just right. And when I heard that we at Locked On could get some Skims underwear to try out, my first thought was, I had no idea they made it men's underwear. And it turns out, yeah, they do. A lot of different styles. And I'm like, well, am I going to like them? And the answer is, yeah, like them a lot. I tried the 3-inch and the 5-inch boxer briefs, and they're both incredibly comfortable. They neither bunch up. They look really good. Like, partner's going to dig them. Highly recommend on that front. Shop Skims Men at skimsmen.com.
Hey now. Ooh.
Yeah. Let them know after we your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop.
I've said too much.
In the drop-down menu that follows. Locked on Lakers. That's really important. Again, select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Locked on Lakers. We want credit. Shop Skims Men at skims.com.
Locked on Lakers also brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. The playoffs, the Rams are still in. Go Rams. Beat those Eagles. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel is easy to navigate. The variety of bets keeps every game exciting. And plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. You don't have to wait around for your winnings. So whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add a little extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I definitely want to get into. I would come up with one quick question actually. D'Lo returns tonight. He is going to play. He's been in and out of the lineup with a shin contusion. He is off their injury report. He will play. The reaction is,
I think he's going to get a tribute video, in which case he will get cheered during the tribute video, because I think, generally speaking, Laker
you think we'll
fans.
give him a tribute video?
Oh, dude, he was back for 2.5 seasons. Was part of a Western Conference Finals run.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was an original draft pick of the Lakers. He's going to get. I'm not saying it's going to be like a 7-minute montage. I'm just saying he will get some type of acknowledgement. Yes, he's been with the team. He's been a starting or rotation point guard for them for like 2.5 seasons.
Okay. Yeah. He's like, in non-consecutive terms, like Grover Cleveland. So,
right. Well, I mean, I imagine the second time he came back to the White House, they gave him a tribute video as well. But I think he will, when he's first introduced by Lawrence Tanner, I think it's going to be some audible boos, probably more audible than the cheers.
Depends if Nick Young's there.
Yeah, he's going to have a megaphone. He's going to buy courtside seats just to heckle. Boo! But I think he will get some type of video acknowledgement. And I do think in that moment he actually will get cheered. And look, D'Lo's always been polarizing. He was polarizing during his first term with the Lakers, polarizing with his second. In his inevitable third, I imagine he'll be polarizing as well.
Just, so he goes next to Golden State and then back to Minnesota and then back to the Lakers. So it'll take a couple years, but he'll get it. Mm-hmm. We are not probably going to have
Rob will still be the GM.
Probably. Well, that I believe. We may not get to Dalton Connect, but both of us definitely want to kind of break into the incredible disappearance of Dalton Connect's shot and therefore his effectiveness with the team. But I did ask you a question going into the break about whether or not this sort of reframing of how they might want to defend and getting a couple, bigs on the floor at the same time, if that changes at all how you look at the trade market and what they might be willing to give up or should give up, to try to get a legitimate, playable, again, no disrespect, but a truly playable, non-two-way replacement level guy.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, they could use a backup center upgrade regardless, like whether JJ wants to go with more two big looks, whether he doesn't even want to but feels like he has to. And I mention that because I think that weighs a lot into the idea of how much would you give up and who would you pursue. You really need to find out from Redick, is this something that he is starting to evolve towards, or is this something that he still doesn't really like, but he's recognizing some things are going wrong?
Like if we give you a starting caliber center, are you going to play him starting minutes?
Well, I mean, the only truly starting caliber center that's out there would be Walker Kessler. And I mean, if they somehow land Walker Kessler, even if he didn't come off the bench, I assume that they're going to play that guy 25 to 30 minutes a night, just because the price to get him, if you're not playing him the F are you doing? Like, what was the point of all this? But like, let's just say they decided to roll the dice on Robert Williams III's injury history. I don't expect him to be playing 25 to 30 minutes a night. Do I think he could play some with AD? Yeah, because I think their skill sets actually match up with each other, particularly defensively, very well. But I don't see him as somebody that you have to start. Like, you're not pot committed to starting Time Lord if you bring him in.
I'm still sort of stuck here because, like, you look around the roster and they need stuff. And I think if you want to play two big lineups with some degree of frequency, you need a better second big. And Jackson Hayes works hard, but like there is a limit to what he can do for your team. And Jemison clearly is a guy that everybody agrees is a hard worker, but most of the like sort of quick scouting reports you get, texting guys, hey, what do you like about it? What do you know? You watched him play. Our colleagues in New Orleans and other places, and they're like, he's really big, he's a good guy, and he works real hard.
I will say it's very clear, even in limited sample size, he is good on the offensive glass. Like that's something he does seemingly pretty well. It's an area the Lakers could use help.
But obviously a very limited player.
Yeah.
And so, and then, Koloko is both limited and limited. Like he's limited in his game. It's just still evolving, very inexperienced player, and literally limited, as we mentioned in the last segment, and how often he can play. There is no Christian Wood. Jared Vanderbilt can play small ball center, but it's not that doesn't count. Like when you
we got to get him back on the court,
right? But
before we start figuring out.
He comes back next week. You can't put Jared Vanderbilt on the floor with Anthony Davis and claim you're playing two centers. Like that's
no, but I mean, here's
cheating.
what I do think is interesting, though. I mean, depending on who else is out there, you could be claiming to get bigger at least, and you could at least shore up some of the defensive and rebounding issues that JJ was talking about. Mm-hmm. I do think you're correct, though, that unless they make a move, the amount of court time that's going to be devoted to these two big looks is limited just in terms of what they have to offer towards it in the first place. And again, other than Walker Kessler, I don't know if there's anybody on the market that would force, like that if you trade for him, you force JJ's hand. Like, you kind of have to go with more two big, like you can, but you don't have to.
And the salary slotting too on a guy like Valanciunas is really interesting at this point because Rui is too expensive. And so you'd have to build something out where you get other things back. And I don't want to get into the complications of apron land. But Gabe Vincent for a center is problematic. Like you want to talk about the playing without a net at this point. Like now your net is JHS and Bronny.
At that point, you cut Jemison and hope that Oliveira is still available.
Right. you bringing up guys from the G League. You're exactly right. But you made a point that I think was really smart, and it's one you've made before. They can get bigger on a trade market without trading for a center. Those two things are not the same thing necessarily. I know that's a point you've made a bunch of times. Like the Lakers used to play big without necessarily playing a bunch of centers at the same time.
They had a lot of different ways that they could create size, if not necessarily bulk. I mean, the irony is you brought up Valanciunas. If they traded for Valanciunas, I don't actually think he and AD played together particularly well. Like, I don't love the idea of those two together.
If you trade Gabe Vincent, a guard has to come back. Like, you got to find a guard somewhere. Side note: before we got the Nets, who will have more players on the floor than they did against the Clippers earlier in the week. The Clippers are up again, and a lot can change. It's the NBA; it's a game of runs. But as they get towards halftime, the Clippers, who beat the Nets by 60, are currently 59, I think technically, but they're currently up on the Blazers by 20. So there's a very good chance when the Lakers get to this game on Saturday that is it Saturday? Sunday, I should say, the Clipper game, that they will be feeling very good about themselves. So that is a game the Lakers need to be paying attention to, but not before, Andy, they take care of business tonight, because if you screw up this game against the Brooklyn Nets, I don't care how many of their guys they have back on the floor. That is a very bad thing. Very, very bad.
Oh,
very bad.
The takes if they lose to the Nets in a game where D'Lo goes off for 30 points, 12 assists, no turnovers. Oh my Lord! Oh my
caliente. Take the temperature of those takes.
5 different ice in my veins celebrations. Oof.
Oh my God. If I'm D'Lo, every 3-pointer I hit, if things are looking good, I am sprinting around the floor just with my ice in my veins thing. It's going nuts. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Check out the postcast with Dave Pele. Make sure you're signing up for the Locked On Lakers newsletter. Daily, you get this thing in your inbox every day. Analysis from us, analysis from around the league. It's a great way to keep up with the show and the NBA. So we will see everyone tomorrow.